WBUR Podcasts, Boston.
Reina Morales Rojas is an immigrant from El Salvador. She had recently arrived to the Boston area. She was working for a company that catered meals at Logan Airport. She left 2 children back home in El Salvador under the care of her sister, Alicia, 15-year-old girl, 13-year-old boy. She basically came here to work and make money and for a better life in general. The night of Saturday, November 26th, she went out. And then on Sunday, her sister could not locate her. Basically, she sent her a text. She sent her audio messages through WhatsApp. She called her, and she was basically not responding, which Alicia, the sister, immediately thought was super weird. So she contacted Reina's boyfriend and her landlord on Sunday, the 27th. And the boyfriend said, yeah, we can't get a hold of her either. And then the landlord told Alicia she didn't sleep here last night. The next day, Monday, November 28th, the boyfriend and Reina's landlord filed a missing persons report. The Boston police did not make her disappearance public until January 12th. And to this day, I have not heard a single explanation as to why.
Reina Morales Rojas, a recent immigrant and resident of East Boston, has been missing for 3 months. It took Boston police more than 6 weeks to announce her case, and it has received little public attention since. Boston Globe associate editor and columnist Marcela Garcia has been following the story, and she joined us to tell us more about Reina and how her case was overlooked for so long.
In the beginning, when Alicia was calling, we're talking early December, calling the police, she told me that a detective at the Boston police, not only were they not making public Reina's disappearance at this time, but they were telling her, she's going to call you. She's going to come, she's going to turn up. Just when she calls you, when she communicates with you, you let us know. And Alicia was flabbergasted because she was like, no, she is missing. You don't understand. We would have already heard from her. Reina used to be a police officer in her hometown. She knows safety protocols that you call 911. She knows all of that. And so for Alicia to hear from a detective in the Boston police that she's going to call you, you wait for her call, she was just puzzled. And so I asked the police what happened here. And to my dismay, they actually said, regrettably, we did not make this information public. I mean, that in and of itself tells you that they could have made her case or her disappearance public, and yet they didn't.
I want to take a second to read an excerpt from an article in the Globe published earlier this month that mentions 2 other missing people. In recent weeks, the cases of Anna Walsh and Brittany T., both white women from affluent suburbs, have rocketed across social media, drawn intense press coverage, and taxed police resources. Almost immediately, Massachusetts State Police joined local law enforcement in those searches. Meanwhile, Morales Rojas, who went missing a month and a half earlier, garnered not a glance. When I read that, I see a situation where white women were prioritized, which is a long-standing tradition in America. And as it relates to press coverage, it's known as missing white woman syndrome. But still, I want to interrogate this and ask if there's anything we may not be seeing in the cases of Anna and Brittany that would explain the difference in treatment.
I mean, look, the proof is in the pudding. This is multidimensional too, and I have to say that it involves us at the media, and I don't want to forgo that. We in the media take a lot of cues and clues from law enforcement. When law enforcement, in this case, Boston Police Department, when they put out an alert of a missing person, we in the media cover it, right? January 12th comes, they finally announce and make public Reina Morales Rojas' disappearance. And we in the Globe wrote a small write-up on this, basically the same information from the press release. Of course, it gets barely no attention. It does get attention from one local news station, not surprisingly, is Telemundo New England, Telemundo Nueva Inglaterra, which is a Spanish language TV network. That is a sister network of NBC 10, the local NBC affiliate. They also cover the story. And both of these stations stay on the story. And that's how some local advocates from Latinos Unidos in Massachusetts, LUMA, and Lucy Pineda, its executive director, who's also Salvadorian, got wind of the story. And they were like, wait a minute, something's going on here. There's this woman who has been missing for more than a month. And this is the first time we're hearing about this. So Lucy mobilized her members, LUMA's members, and they organized vigils and protests around her disappearance and just telling people what was going on. And that's when I started covering. I'm planning on staying on the topic because right now, as we speak, there hasn't been a lot of coverage. There hasn't been any update on her case. I understand also police work, Daryl. Like, I understand that there's a lot of things that they cannot make public. I'm not asking for a theory on the case. Just give assurances to the public. People out there that look like me, that look like La Reina, local immigrants, are wondering what is going on. And they're not trusting that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in finding this woman.
Well, Marcela, I want to jump in and ask you, what are they supposed to do? What is the protocol for when an adult goes missing?
Well, I asked that to the Boston Police Department, and they said there's no protocols. Mayor Wu told me we are currently reviewing the lack of protocols because she's also interested in the fact that the Boston Police Department, when they do this, when they put out releases about people who go missing, they don't have a multilingual strategy, which is good. I get that. In the meantime, I would like to see some public reassurance. I think they're discounting or they're underestimating, how much a publicly faced press conference would go in reassuring the public that they haven't forgotten about Reina.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Did you kill Marlene Johnson?
I think you're one of the first people to have actually asked.
From WBUR and ZSP Media, this is Beyond All Repair, a new podcast about an unsolved murder that will leave you questioning everything.
Somebody should be in jail for murdering my sister.
A woman who's never been believed.
As long as they think I have done this, then they're not looking for who actually did this.
And that's what makes it a cold case.
No, it's a botched case.
And a search for the truth, once and for all.
Wow, it just gets more interesting.
Beyond All Repair. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
Be careful. You're digging in a place that's been very peaceful for a while.
Do it anyway. Dig.
And we're back. I understand that there are a lot of things at play here when we're talking about the police handling of Reina's disappearance. How much does language play a part in the handling of her case?
There are Spanish-speaking officers, maybe not a lot, but in East Boston, because East Boston, as you know, it's the Boston neighborhood that has the highest share of Latino residents, and that's where Reina lived. And in the beginning, Alicia tells me that he was a Spanish-speaking officer, but she wasn't sure that he was Latino or that he spoke the language. Good. When she was told, you call us when she calls you, that was that detective. But since she's been in touch with, Spanish-speaking officers, I think it does play a role. But at the end of the day, I don't think that can explain the lack of publicity, like the long gap, which is why, as you know, Daryl, we have a new agency in Boston the OPAT, the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency. This is a new agency that is supposed to keep the Boston Police accountable in a much, in an enhanced way, like better, right? Like it's an agency that's supposed to investigate complaints or cases of possible misconduct.
Yeah.
And they have the jurisdiction to launch investigations on their own. And that's what I've been pushing for. We have to know what happened in the immediate aftermath of Reina. Of course, first and foremost, we have to find her, number one. But we also have to make sure that if there was some sort of malpractice, I keep going back to something that Alicia told me. In Spanish, she told me, I'm afraid that her case se traspapeló, meaning in Spanish is that her document, like the documentation, basically just got lost among other papers in the office, right? And so she doesn't think that there was any, intentional malpractice or anything. But how do we prevent this from happening in the future? That's how we do it. We should know what happened here so that it doesn't happen again.
Understood. Marcela, I want to ask you one last question. How is Reina's disappearance impacting her family?
Oh my God. I can't even begin to tell you. It's hard because I tried to stay in touch with Alicia, the sister, because like I said, I really do want to keep writing about this. And the 3-month mark of her disappearance is coming up. And so I want to write a column about that. They seem to be a pretty religious family. And I feel like Alicia just sounds very optimist. And the last time we spoke, which was last week, she broke down and she basically was saying, I hope she's getting fed. I hope she has access to water. And that just broke me.
Yeah.
It was just so heartbreaking to hear. It's so clear that they are struggling. The kids, I cannot even tell you. To their credit, government officials in El Salvador are giving them psychological assistance for free, which I think it's huge. They're obviously traumatized. They want to find her and they want to know what happened to their mom. And so it is absolutely heartbreaking. I obviously cannot even begin to convey the heartbreak. But they're also very thankful to the advocates here because they feel that they have been Reina's voice and their voice in the wake of Reina's disappearance, because if it weren't for that, I don't know if there would have been coverage. And there still isn't enough coverage. And I thank you for doing this, because I think we also in the media have a role to play when it comes to this. And obviously, we didn't even get into this, but there's the issue of representation in newsrooms, right? How important that is. I'm an immigrant myself. Daryl, I think about this all the time. When I first came here 23 years ago, I was here by myself. I didn't have any family. And so I'm not the only one, of course. That's the immigrant experience. And so a lot of people in Boston can totally relate 100% to Reina and Alicia's plight as a sister in El Salvador. And so, again, this has resonated in the immigrant community. And any bit of media coverage helps, of course, to elevate awareness to her case, and again to hoping that she can be found.
Indeed. I hope they find her, and I hope they find her soon.
Me too.
Marcela, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you for having me.
That's associate editor and columnist for the Boston Globe, Marcela Garcia. And that's our show for today. Thank you so much for listening to The Common. Make sure you hit us up on Instagram or Twitter at WBURTheCommon, or send us an email at thecommon@wbur.org. I'm Daryl C. Murphy, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.